At the start of the story, we meet a fisherman named Paul who lives with his wife in a small house by the sea, far from the city due to a lack of money. Even though Paul doesn't have any money, he is very happy living with his wife because he loves her deeply. Every day, Paul goes to the sea to fish, which is how he makes a living. One day, when Paul is fishing by the seaside, he catches a very strange fish. This fish can talk like a human. She says to Paul, "Let me go back into the sea, don't kill me. In return, I can grant any wish you ask for." Paul feels sorry for the fish and releases it back into the sea, then goes home and tells his wife everything that happened. His wife, however, becomes greedy and suggests that he should have asked for something. Paul says, "I have everything I need. I can work hard and provide 2 meals a day for both you and me." His wife says, "Tomorrow we will have children. Look at our house, we can't give them a good life. That's why you need to go and ask the fish for it." Even though Paul doesn't want to do this, at his wife's insistence, he goes to the shore and hesitantly calls out to the fish. The next moment, the fish appears before him. It asks Paul, "Why did you call me?" Paul says that his wife wants their house to be bigger with everything they need to eat and drink. The fish agrees, and when Paul returns home, he finds their house has indeed grown larger, complete with everything they need. Paul's wife is very happy about this. Even though there is now no shortage of food and drink in Paul's house, he still does not give up his work. He goes to the seashore to catch fish, and whatever fish he catches, he gives to another poor friend, because that friend has 5 children. In fact, Paul is very kind-hearted. There is no greed in his heart at all, while his wife's greed has grown even more than before. When Paul comes home, his wife says, "I want you to go to that fish once again and ask for an even bigger house, one with servants." Paul tries to explain to her, "We had nothing before, but now we have everything. We shouldn't be greedy for more," but his wife forces him. So Paul reluctantly goes to the fish again. He calls out to the fish. The fish comes out of the sea and asks, "Why did you call me?" Paul explains that his wife wants an even bigger house with servants, gold, and silver. The fish says, "All right, it will be done." And when Paul returns, he sees that his house has truly become much bigger, which makes his wife very happy. There is nothing lacking in their home. But Paul still goes fishing because that's what he has done all his life. Whatever fish he catches, he gives them to his other poor friend. One day, Paul's wife says, "I've invited a very wealthy couple from the city to our home for dinner today. I want us to be friends with rich people." When Paul comes home in the evening, he sees his wife learning the manners and ways of rich people from their servant. She urges Paul to change his clothes and adopt these manners too. Paul says, "I don't see anything lacking in our way of living. That's why I don't believe in these fancy manners." Before Paul can change his clothes, the rich couple arrives. In their presence, Paul's wife acts like the wealthy. The rich man kisses Paul's wife's hand because that's how rich people behave. But Paul doesn't do that. He simply shakes his wife's hand and pats the rich man on the shoulder, saying, "How are you?" Paul's wife feels very embarrassed. Now everyone sits down at the dinner table where the rich man asks, "What do you do for a living?" Paul is about to reveal he is a fisherman, but his wife interjects, claiming they conduct business through the sea. The rich couple sees through the lie, and the rich man's wife points out that their clothes and mannerisms clearly indicate they are fishermen pretending to be rich. Angered by this, Paul's wife asks them to leave. After they depart, she tells Paul that their true identity as fishermen was discovered. Paul says, "What's wrong with it? This is our reality." Paul sleeps peacefully at night, but his wife can't sleep at all. That's why after Paul wakes up, his wife insists once again, "Call that fish and ask it to make me the queen here." There's no one living near their house for miles. Although Paul doesn't want to do this, his wife forces him. So unwillingly, Paul goes to the seaside once more and calls out to the fish. The fish emerges and asks Paul, "Why did you summon me?" Paul says, "My wife wants us to have a huge palace where she can be the queen." The fish responds, "All right, it shall be done." And now, as usual, he visits his friend's house with the fish he catches from the sea every day, but today his friend declines to accept the fish. He says, "You've helped me a lot, but now I can't take fish from you for free." Paul returns home with the fish, where now stands a magnificent palace, and his wife is the queen, with servants and advisors. They don't recognize Paul, so they grab him and take him to his own wife, their queen, who has completely changed from how she used to be. She had become arrogant, but Paul still loved his wife very much. His wife says, "My advisors have suggested that we need to expand our kingdom. I want to become the ruler of the entire world. So go to that fish again and ask it to make me the emperor of the whole world." Paul tries to reason with her, saying, "You need to control your greed. We had nothing before, but now we have everything." But his wife ignores him and angrily kicks over his bucket of fish. Paul feels very disheartened. He goes to the seaside once more and calls out to the fish. The fish emerges and asks Paul, "What do you want now?" Paul says, "I don't want anything for myself, but my wife wants to become a great empress. Her palace should become even bigger than before." The fish says it will be so, and that's exactly what happens. His wife is now the greatest emperor in the world. She has numerous advisors to whom she declares, "Now I am the most powerful in this world." There's a priest present who says, "The most powerful in this world are our religious leaders, whom even great kings heed." Hearing this, she becomes furious. She's searching for her husband Paul, but Paul hasn't returned home. In fact, he's fallen asleep by the seaside. So she sends one of her soldiers, who captures Paul and brings him before her. And now she instructs Paul, "Go to that fish again and ask it to make me the supreme religious leader of the Christians so that everyone listens to me. Even the greatest kings come to me for advice," and he tries to explain to her that now you have everything. You shouldn't let your greed grow any further. But she doesn't heed him and says, "I am the greatest emperor. You must obey my orders." And now Paul goes to the seaside once more, where he calls out to the same fish and tells the fish that my wife wants to become the supreme religious leader of the Christians. Her palace should become the largest church in the world. The fish replies, "All right, it shall be done." And when he returns home, there's indeed a vast church there with many petitioners. Paul sits among them. Soon his wife arrives, who is now the supreme religious leader of the Christians. Everyone holds her in high regard. All the petitioners present their requests, and just then Paul stands up. He asks, "When will God listen to our petitions?" His wife is startled to see him and says, "I will pray to God. Soon he will fulfill all your requests." He says, "If you have to pray to God, why don't we pray directly to God ourselves?" Hearing this, she is taken aback. And now at night, when Paul approaches his wife, she is very sad. She is also angry with him. He wants to go to her, but she says, "Stay away from me. I am the supreme religious leader in this world, so you have to adhere to certain things." The next morning, when his wife wakes up, she sees the sun rising and now tells Paul, "I want you to go to that fish once more and ask it to grant me complete control over the sun, moon, stars, everything in this world, even heaven. I wish to become as powerful as God so I can personally fulfill every human's prayers." Despite Paul's efforts to explain things to her, she refuses to listen and loses her temper. Out of necessity, Paul calls out to the fish by the sea once more. The fish emerges from the ocean and asks what his wife desires now. He says that she wants to become like God so that she can control the whole world. The fish responds that this is impossible as his wife has crossed every boundary of greed. That's why you will now go back to the same situation you were in before. And with that, she goes back into the sea. When Paul returns home, his house has become small again, just like before, where his wife is waiting for him. She has realized her mistake and apologizes to Paul. Paul was content with his life, and now happiness has returned to him once more. He and his wife resume living as they did before. Although they lack money, they have abundant love for each other, and love is happiness. This story teaches us that regardless of how much we have in life, we should be content and find happiness within it. No matter how much a person acquires, their greed is never satisfied and they always demand more, causing happiness to drift far away. This was a charming folk tale that has transformed many lives. We hope you enjoyed this story.